Welcome to the Funeral Funds Life Insurance Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Vandervate from Funeral Funds of America, and you can find us at funeralfunds.com. That's funeral, Funds.com. Whether you're interested in term life, whole life, annuities, disability, business continuation, or final expense life insurance funding, we have you covered. Our team of experienced professionals will guide you through the complexities of insurance products to help you make an informed decision. In this podcast, I'm going to be discussing how much coverage is needed for final expenses. And I've got 4 talking points here today. Let's start off with number 1. It depends on your needs. I mean, most people would say, well, that's pretty common sense. But, a lot of people that we talk with, they've been so busy living their lives that they haven't thought about dying. And what often happens is somebody close to them passed away and they did some self-reflection and they said, "Oh my gosh, if that were to happen to me, my spouse or partner or my loved ones or my children or my family, they would be in dire uh, economic stress because they don't have the money to pay for this and I don't have the assets or the savings or anything." And so I just want to make sure that they're taken care of. Now, to make sure they're taken care of, you got to know what's going to happen after you pass away. Typically, that's going to be one of 2 things, either a burial or a cremation. So if you're going to get cremated, the average cost of a cremation in the United States right now is between $1,000 to $2,000. That's if you just get cremated and they put your remains in a cardboard box or an urn and send you home with somebody. Now, if you're going to have a cremation and a ceremony, you know, probably on average would be $3,500 to $4,500, but we've seen it go a little bit higher if you just live in a part of the country that's more expensive. But on average, that would be okay. So typically, what we would recommend for a cremation, where you just come home in that cardboard box or an urn, is somewhere between $5,000 to $7,000 worth of coverage. Now you might be going, well, Randy, the cremation's only 1,000 to 2,000. Why do I need 5,000 to 7,000? Well, if you're 60 years old, you're probably hoping to live another 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. And we know that price goes up. That's going to be our number 2 talking point, by the way, inflation. So we just want to make sure that you get enough coverage so that it not only pays for it now, but pays for it later. And for a cremation where you're going to have some sort of a ceremony, we typically recommend somewhere between 7,000 to 10,000. And then for that burial, the actual cost right now is probably around $10,000, but we know it'll get more expensive later in life due to inflation. So typically recommend somewhere between 10 to 20,000, which brings us to our number 2 topic, which I've kind of jumped right into, is adjust for inflation, right? Because we know that, a gallon of milk 20 years ago was less expensive than it is now. Gas was less expensive, 15 years ago than it is today. Houses were less expensive 10 years ago than they are today. We know that the prices go up over time. And we just want to make sure that, if you're 62 and you're a female, you're probably average making it to age 82, on average. You could make it longer, could make it shorter, but that's 20 years. So 20 years worth of inflation. So the purpose of this podcast is not to go into inflationary numbers and saying, hey, if I live 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, how much do I need? We can do that one-on-one with you over the phone because, it's going to depend on the insurance company that's going to accept you, have the most likelihood of accepting you. And then, of course, we're going to be shopping for the company that's going to get you the best pricing too. But also, I will mention one point that if you're on a fixed or limited income and all you can afford, like say you wanted a burial, if all you could afford was $10,000 right now, and we know that that's the average cost of a burial, and that's not going to inflation proof your plan in another 10 or 20 years. But if that's all you can afford, go ahead and get that coverage right now, because it's going to, number 1, cover the most immediate needs. None of us knows when we are going to die. So if you died, a month from now, that would take care of everything. But also, it's a good foundation for that coverage, and it locks you in at your youngest and earliest age. So if you're 62 years old and you get $10,000, that locks in your rate for a 62-year-old for the rest of your life. And then if you need to at some point in the future, you can always add in more coverage. Just give us a call. Even if you've got an existing policy with somebody who we didn't help you with, give us a call and we can help you add coverage. Our number 3 point today in how much coverage do I need for final expense insurance is consider all expenses. So certainly the number one thing you want to cover for sure is going to be that burial or cremation. That's kind of rule number one. But typically when most people pass away, there's some medical bills. There, if you had some credit card bills that you hadn't paid off, or some other outstanding debts, and even covering for some legal fees that we know are going to happen. Because holy cow, it's hard to wade through all the rules and regulations and everything and make sure that everything's handled correctly, sometimes without getting some sort of lawyer or legal counsel or something like that, just to make sure things are done right. So often it's wise to include some extra coverage in there. And that could be anywhere from maybe, it just depends, medical bills, you never know about those. But um, we could help you understand your options based off where you live in the United States, and just kind of help you understand what's going to be a good round number. And we can run that through some calculations to give you an idea. And then, and then it's your decision from that point, whether to get that much coverage or just to get some coverage in place immediately and look at adding more coverage later. The fourth talking point on how much coverage is needed for final expense insurance is just consider your current assets or obligations. So sometimes people have the money to pay if they were to die right now. So let's say you're 75 and you've got $10,000 in savings. Well, that's enough to take care of things if you died right now. But what we've seen time and time again is that people had been responsible. They had that money in place until they got a sickness or an illness. And then to get well, they drained those reserve funds. Now, that's what that money was there for. But now you don't have any money to pay for your final expenses or your burial. And also, if you had those health challenges, probably now you may not qualify for first day coverage at the lowest rates. So now you've drained your money, and now you don't have this insurance, and there may be a chance that you don't qualify for first day coverage, which is going to put you into a 2-year waiting period plan that's going to be, in some cases, 200% more expensive than that first day coverage. So even if you've got those assets, as we get older, those assets get depleted. And the other thing is, even if you have physical assets, house or property or something like that, those take a long time to sell to get that money freed up. And, when somebody passes away, there's a body down at the funeral home that needs to be cremated or buried. And it's really important that that money be quickly and readily available. And final expense insurance really handles that task exceptionally well. So I hope that gives you some good tips and advice on how much coverage do you need for final expense insurance. If you have any question, and if you listen to this podcast, I know we touched on enough different points that you probably don't have one question. You've probably got 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 or 7 or 10 questions. And those are best addressed on a one-on-one basis. And we can help you understand, with our vast amount of experience, what's going to be the best plan of attack for you. We can lay you out some different scenarios and get you some coverage and quote amounts. And then it's up to you to decide. But yeah, that'll give you a really good head start. So my name is Randy Vandervate, and I hope this podcast has been helpful to you. Funeral Funds of America can help you qualify for first day coverage or benefits at funeralfunds.com. That's funeral, FUNDS.com. And our phone number is 888-862-9456. We will be blessed to help you with this in the future. Until that day comes, stay safe, take care, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.